There's a reason people treat you the way they do, and often it has less to do with them and more to do with what you believe about yourself. The way you value your own presence, your energy, your time, your heart, sets the tone for how others perceive and respond to you. As Carl Jung famously said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But most people never claim that privilege. They settle, they shrink, they allow themselves to become optional in the eyes of others, hoping love or validation will fill the gap they haven't filled within themselves. This is the beginning of your transformation. This is the moment you stop seeing yourself as an option, and instead start stepping into the identity of someone rare, someone irreplaceable, someone who is a luxury, not because of arrogance or ego, but because of self-respect and deep inner knowing. The first key to making others see you as a luxury is this: you must recognize that your value is not determined by how others treat you. It's revealed by how you treat yourself when others don't see your worth. This is the spiritual essence of self-worth. When you carry yourself with dignity in the face of neglect, when you remain grounded even when others overlook your depth, you signal to the universe that you are not for everyone. And that's exactly the point. Luxury is rare, luxury is intentional, and luxury never chases. Now think about this. What message are you sending when you constantly overextend yourself for someone who barely notices your efforts? When you beg for attention, affection, or basic respect, you're saying, "My presence is easy to obtain. My love comes without standards." And the painful truth is, what comes easy is rarely valued. Carl Jung taught that the psyche thrives on individuation, the process of becoming a fully realized self. When you suppress your own needs to make others comfortable, you not only distort your identity, but you diminish your spiritual power. You start to believe you must earn love, prove your worth, or compete for attention. But what if you believed deeply and unshakably that the right people will be drawn to your energy, not because you perform, but because you exist in full authenticity? That's what it means to be a luxury. You don't explain your value. You embody it. You don't argue for your worth. You live it. And most importantly, you don't fear walking away when your soul feels unseen. Because detachment is a superpower. The moment you decide that peace is more important than approval, that clarity is more valuable than chaos, you reclaim your position, not just in relationships, but in your life. Luxury doesn't compete, it doesn't chase, it doesn't lower its standards just to be accepted, and neither should you. So ask yourself, where have I been optional in my own life? Who have I been trying to convince to love me when I haven't fully loved myself? And how would I move differently, speak differently, if I saw myself as a sacred presence, not a backup plan? This inner dialogue is the beginning of your elevation, because when you change the way you see yourself, you change what you tolerate. When you stop negotiating with your boundaries, people either rise to meet you or fall away. Both are answers. Both are blessings. Carl Jung believed the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But within that terrifying truth lies liberation. You become untouchable not because you have no emotions, but because your emotions are no longer used against you. You stop needing approval because you approve of yourself. And from that place of power, you radiate something others can feel, even if they can't explain it. That is luxury, that is rarity, and that is who you're becoming. Carl Jung once said, "The most intense conflicts, if overcome, Leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. This quote, while seemingly about conflict, also applies to emotional complexity and mystery. You see, one of the most powerful forces in human psychology is curiosity. When you make yourself too available, too explainable, too visible, you give away all the tension that drives desire. Mystery is not about manipulation. It's about maintaining a part of yourself that is not on public display. It's about having inner depth, emotional boundaries, and self-respect. And most importantly, it's about making people wonder about your world, your mind, your silence. When someone doesn't fully understand you but feels drawn to you, it activates a psychological chase, the same one that makes us addicted to solving puzzles, to finding meaning in dreams, to exploring the unknown. Too many good people over-explain themselves, thinking transparency equals value. But in reality, what's rare is respected. What's quiet is intriguing. What's hidden becomes magnetic. Jung believed deeply in the power of the unconscious, the part of the psyche that shapes our desires without us even realizing it. When you embrace mystery, you tap into this unconscious realm in others. You awaken curiosity. You become unforgettable because you're not trying to be understood. You're simply being. Let's take an example. Imagine a person who walks into a room and speaks only when it adds value. They don't overshare. They listen more than they talk. They carry themselves with dignity, confidence, and calm. People want to know what they're thinking. People notice their absence as much as their presence. This is the effect of cultivated mystery. But cultivating mystery doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means being intentional. It means choosing silence over validation, choosing privacy over proving yourself, choosing energy over explanation. When you're selective with your time, your attention, your vulnerability, you become a luxury, and people start to treat you like one. Luxury is not just about money or appearance. It's about rarity. And rarity comes from what is not easily accessible. Think of your time, your heart, your mind as sacred territory. Not everyone gets access, and those who do must earn it. Jung's concept of individuation teaches us that true growth comes from becoming whole within ourselves, not from trying to be everything for everyone. You become a luxury when you no longer chase being understood. You embrace the paradox of being deeply known only by a few. You don't expose every emotion or thought, because not everyone has earned the right to see those layers. You recognize that your presence alone is a gift. In a world obsessed with performance and exposure, your ability to maintain inner stillness, spiritual privacy, and confident silence will set you apart. You don't need to post everything, say everything, explain everything. People who truly value you will tune in to the energy you carry, not just the words you speak. And remember, when someone cannot fully grasp you, they can't easily forget you either. That's how you shift from being seen as an option to being perceived as a presence that elevates the spice, a presence that commands respect, a presence that makes others rise just by being near it. So ask yourself today, what do I need to stop giving away so freely? What parts of myself am I exposing in the name of being liked? What would it look like to carry myself like a mystery instead of a mirror for others' needs? The more you cultivate the art of mystery, the more magnetic your essence becomes. You don't need to beg to be seen. You simply need to be deeply rooted in who you are. That's the luxury. That's the power. And that's how people begin to see you not as an option, but as a rare irreplaceable force. There is a moment in life when you stop begging for attention, and instead you start commanding it through your presence, your standards, and your unshakable self-worth. This is not arrogance. This is alignment with your inner value. When you elevate your standards, you send a silent but powerful message. I am not here to be chosen by everyone. I am here to choose. Carl Jung believed that people project their shadows onto others, and often we allow low-value treatment because we haven't faced our own hidden fears of being alone or unworthy. But once you confront those inner ghosts, you rise, and when you rise, you raise the bar. People respect what you respect in yourself. If you tolerate inconsistency, you will attract it. If you let people play with your time, they will. If you allow yourself to be someone's option, they will never see you as the luxury you are. You must become unshakable in your expectations, not because you are rigid, but because you understand your worth. Raising your standards starts internally. It's not about a checklist for others, but about a commitment to your own emotional, mental, and spiritual hygiene. Do you demand honesty from yourself? Do you hold yourself accountable for your energy? Are you cultivating peace, not drama? Because once you do, the external world adjusts. People either rise to meet you or fall away, and that is how it should be. Start with boundaries, not walls, but boundaries built from love for yourself. Learn to say no without guilt. Stop over-explaining. Let silence speak when respect is missing. Luxury is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It simply is. Let your presence be an experience, not a transaction. You are not available for casual treatment. You are not here to prove your worth to those who cannot recognize it. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, is not easy. It requires the death of who you were taught to be, so you can become who you were meant to be. And that includes no longer accepting crumbs when you deserve the whole feast. When you elevate your standards, you stop entertaining people who are lukewarm, who ghost and return, who expect your energy on demand. You stop showing up for people who don't show up for themselves. Luxury is not about wealth. It is about refinement. Emotional refinement. Spiritual refinement. You radiate rare energy when you refuse to settle. People feel that. They don't always understand it, but they are drawn to it, even if it intimidates them. That's okay. You're not here to be digestible for everyone. You're here to be unforgettable to the right ones. When someone sees that you require depth, honesty, consistency, and presence, not because you're demanding, but because you live by those values, they start to realize, this is not a person I can treat casually. This is someone whose time is sacred. And that changes the dynamic entirely. You become the standard. You become the experience. And you no longer chase energy. You magnetize it. Because luxury doesn't chase. It simply shines. So ask yourself daily, am I lowering myself to be accepted, or am I rising to be respected? The answer determines whether people see you as an option or as a rare, powerful presence. And remember, the more you respect your own soul, the less interested you are in negotiating your value. When you elevate your standards, you teach the world how to treat you, not with entitlement, but with excellence, because you are the standard. In the journey of being seen as a luxury rather than just an option, one of the most powerful transformations you can undergo is building emotional independence. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why is this terrifying? Because it requires facing your shadows, embracing solitude, and realizing that no one, absolutely no one, is responsible for your emotional well-being but you. When you are emotionally dependent, you give away your power. You start to rely on others for validation, happiness, and identity. You become reactive instead of proactive. You start to fear abandonment and rejection. And in doing so, you begin to shrink, to shapeshift, to lose yourself trying to become what others want. That is the recipe for becoming disposable. A replaceable option, not an irreplaceable luxury. But emotional independence changes everything. It means your peace does not rely on someone staying. It means you do not chase, you attract. You do not beg for attention, you command it with presence. Your self-worth becomes non-negotiable. People begin to feel that your energy is not only rare, it is untouchable, unless invited. And that is when they begin to see you not just as someone nice to have, but as someone they'd be foolish to lose. To build this kind of independence, you must start by developing a strong internal world. You must enjoy your own company, spend time in solitude without the anxiety of being alone, and listen to the whispers of your subconscious. Jung believed that solitude wasn't isolation. It was alignment. You're aligning with the truth of who you are, beyond the noise of the world. Start paying attention to your emotional triggers. When someone ghosts you, disrespects you, or doesn't reciprocate, do you collapse internally? Or do you observe, adjust, and continue forward unshaken? That is the difference. The emotionally independent person doesn't panic. They evaluate. They don't spiral. They center themselves. That unshakable energy is what makes others respect you, and even fear losing you. Remember, luxury is rooted in scarcity. When people see that your peace is not for sale, that your time is not given freely, and that your love is not handed out to the unworthy, they begin to treat it with reverence. You stop being someone they think will always be there. You become the one they never want to risk living without. Let go of the idea that someone else will save you, complete you, or make you feel whole. That fantasy is what keeps you small. Instead, become your own savior. Build your inner sanctuary. Learn to self-regulate, to soothe your inner child, to celebrate your wins in silence. When you do this, you become untouchable in the most beautiful way. People will try to test your boundaries. They will try to see how much of yourself you're willing to give for their temporary approval. And here's where your emotional independence will shine. You don't bend. You don't chase closure. You don't explain yourself repeatedly. You simply let people experience the consequences of their actions. You become the lesson, not the fallback. One of the darkest but most empowering truths Jung ever hinted at was this. To be whole, you must accept your aloneness. You must stop seeking completion in others. Only then will the right people, those who see you as luxury, arrive. Not out of need, but out of resonance. Not because you fill their voids, but because your wholeness reflects theirs. This is your challenge. Become emotionally sovereign. Let go of codependency. Rewire your nervous system to find safety within. When someone comes into your life, they should be entering a kingdom, not a rescue mission. They should meet a soul that is already grounded, fulfilled, and complete. That is power. That is what makes you unforgettable. The emotionally dependent are many, but those who have done the shadow work, those who have confronted their wounds, healed their patterns, and stood tall in their solitude, those are rare. Those are luxury. Be one of them. Carl Jung once said, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life." And in many ways that quote speaks to one of the most overlooked psychological truths. People are drawn to mystery. They are addicted to the unknown, the unsolved, the ungraspable. When someone feels they've figured you out entirely, you lose a certain energetic tension, and with it, their deep fascination. But when you hold back just enough, when you leave room for curiosity, for pursuit, for discovery, that's when you become magnetic. Think about it. In a world where people overshare, overexpose, and overexplain, being reserved, being artfully mysterious, becomes a rare quality. And rarity is the foundation of luxury. Mystery doesn't mean being manipulative or hiding your true self. It means knowing your worth so deeply that you don't feel the need to put everything on the table right away. It means letting people earn access to your layers. It means creating space for anticipation, for questions, for intrigue. It's about controlling your narrative, not by being secretive, but by being intentional. The truth is, we teach people how to treat us not just through what we say, but through how much we reveal. If you give away all of yourself too soon, you send the message. You didn't need to do much to get this close, and anything that's easily accessible becomes undervalued. But when you gradually unfold, when your soul is a book they can't put down, that's when they begin to cherish every page. Carl Jung's concept of individuation, becoming whole by integrating all aspects of yourself, includes knowing what parts of you are for the world, and what parts are sacred. Not everything must be revealed to everyone. The most powerful version of you doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be self-contained. A person who knows themselves deeply but chooses wisely what to share. That's luxury. Mystery is also about boundaries. You do not need to answer every text right away. You don't need to be emotionally available 24/7. You don't need to spill your whole life story on the first date. Emotional self-possession is attractive, and letting others work, letting them make effort, face challenge, experience a little distance, is part of creating that irresistible dynamic where they realize, this person is not like the rest. When you're a mystery, people will lean in. They'll analyze your silence. They'll replay your words. They'll try harder. Why? Because the human brain is wired to solve puzzles. And when the puzzle is a powerful, elegant, emotionally sovereign individual, the desire to understand you becomes a psychological investment. The more they invest, the more they value. But let's be clear. Mystery only works when it is backed by substance. Being mysterious without having depth is a facade, and people eventually see through it. True mystery comes from being multidimensional. It comes from living a rich inner life, from reading, learning, reflecting, healing, growing. It comes from having stories that you don't feel compelled to share, not because you're hiding, but because you know not everyone deserves access to your depth. Jung would remind us that what is unconscious becomes our fate. So when you're mysterious without awareness, it becomes confusion. But when you own your mystery, when it's conscious, purposeful, grounded in self-worth, it becomes allure. It becomes power. It becomes the very thing that sets you apart in a sea of sameness. Luxury is never desperate to be understood. Luxury doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "If you're worthy, you'll know." That's what you must embody. You are not an open buffet. You are a curated experience. Let them wait. Let them try. Let them wonder what you're thinking, where you stand, how much of yourself you've revealed. The need to overshare often comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being enough. But once you transcend that, once you understand that your silence, your restraint, your elegance are your leverage, you begin to move differently. You no longer explain your worth. You show it by knowing that not everything needs to be said. Be the question they keep asking. Be the energy they can't decode. Be the presence they can't predict. That's when you become unforgettable. That's when they stop seeing you as a backup plan and start seeing you as the standard. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what he didn't say, and what we must fully grasp, is that this journey of becoming often requires letting go. Letting go of situations, relationships, and even identities that no longer serve your evolution. And nothing defines a person's self-worth more clearly than their ability to walk away with grace when their value is not being recognized. To be seen as a luxury, you must stop entertaining spaces that treat you as an option. Too many people stay in relationships where they are tolerated, not celebrated, all because of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear that maybe this is the best they'll ever get. But let's be real. The inability to walk away is what keeps you stuck in cycles of disrespect. You train people to think that no matter how little they give, you'll always stay. That's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment. Carl Jung emphasized individuation, the process of becoming your full, authentic self. You cannot individuate while clinging to dynamics that shrink you, drain you, or diminish your light. Sometimes the most spiritual act you can do is leave, not with hate, not with vengeance, but with deep, silent knowing. This is not aligned with who I am becoming. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself more than you care about being chosen by someone who doesn't see you clearly. And that self-respect becomes your energy, a powerful frequency that commands admiration without ever having to beg for it. People often confuse attachment with love, but Jung would remind us that projection is not intimacy. Many times we project our hopes, our wounds, our fantasies onto someone, and mistake it for love. When they disappoint us, we cling harder, hoping they'll become what we imagined. But real growth begins when we stop projecting and start seeing things as they are. And when you see clearly, you realize no one has the right to dim your spirit. No one should have the power to make you question your worth. No one deserves endless access to your heart if they are unwilling to honor it. Luxury is defined by exclusivity, and your energy is no different. The moment you start giving your time, your love, your support only to those who reciprocate, you start operating like a rare gem, and people begin to treat you accordingly. But that shift begins with the willingness to walk away from what doesn't reflect your value. There's an inner power that rises the moment you say, "I will no longer beg to be chosen." It's the power of detachment. It doesn't mean you're cold or unfeeling or cynical. It means you've matured enough to understand that your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. It means you refuse to negotiate your standards just to fit into someone else's limited perception of you. Do you know why walking away works? Because it's rare. Because most people stay. Most people settle. Most people compromise their worth for scraps of attention. But when you walk away, you send a shockwave. You interrupt the pattern. You show them, and more importantly yourself, that you are not afraid to choose yourself. And that's what people remember. They remember the one who didn't chase. They remember the one who didn't collapse into neediness. They remember the one who stood tall in silence and left when things no longer aligned. Jung believed the soul speaks through symbols, images, and deep inner knowing. And if your soul keeps whispering, you deserve better, listen. That whisper is your truth. And when you act on it, when you walk away with dignity, you become unforgettable. Because very few people have the courage to do what you just did. You become luxury the moment you show that you'd rather be alone than in a room where you're unseen. So let them feel your absence. Let them sit with the space you used to fill. Let them wonder what happened. You don't need to explain. Your silence speaks louder than any speech, and your exit, calm, strong, unapologetic, becomes the most powerful message you could ever send. This is the moment your story changes. This is the moment you stop being an option and start being the standard. All because you had the strength to walk away when staying meant betraying yourself. Carl Jung once said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." This includes the chaos of noise, the endless texts, the constant calls, the oversharing on social media, the desperation to be seen, heard, validated. But when you truly want to become a person of high value, a luxury, you must embrace something far more powerful than attention: mystery. We live in a world obsessed with visibility. Everyone wants to be liked, reposted, known. But true luxury doesn't chase attention. It commands it through presence, not performance. When you become comfortable with silence, you shift into a different frequency. You no longer respond impulsively. You don't over-explain. You don't beg for clarity or approval. Your calmness becomes a force. And your stillness makes people lean in. Because in a world that never shuts up, silence is seductive. Jung understood the unconscious mind as the deep reservoir of symbols, instincts, and archetypes. Silence is one of those powerful symbols. It's not the absence of sound. It's the presence of depth. The person who doesn't rush to fill the silence is often the one who holds the most power. Why? Because they are self-possessed. They are not rattled by voids. They don't need constant noise to feel alive. This is the kind of energy that sets you apart from the crowd. When you're mysterious, you're intriguing. When you're emotionally grounded, you're rare. And when you're rare, you're luxury. Think about it. What happens when someone suddenly stops chasing, stops explaining, stops reacting? You feel their absence. You notice their shift. You wonder what changed. That curiosity is powerful because it turns the tables. No longer are you the one trying to prove your worth. Now they are wondering if they still have access to you. Your silence becomes a mirror. It shows others their behavior without needing confrontation. It teaches them your boundaries without needing lectures. And it shows them that you are not someone who can be taken lightly. Carl Jung believed in the power of integration, the unification of opposites, the union of your light and your shadow. When you embrace silence, you also embrace your shadow, your pain, your patience, your power. You stop trying to perform perfection, and you start embodying presence. And presence is what makes people take you seriously. In a psychological sense, people are drawn to what they can't fully understand. The human mind is wired for novelty and uncertainty. When everything is predictable, people lose interest. But when you're unpredictable, when you don't react the same way every time, when you're not always available, they begin to perceive you differently. They become more attentive, more curious, more invested. But here's the key. You must become genuinely comfortable with that space. Don't go silent just to manipulate. Go silent to realign, to remember your own worth, to refill your energy. Because silence without inner peace turns into resentment, but silence grounded in self-worth becomes magnetic. You don't need to broadcast your every move. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't need to explain why you stopped texting first, stopped checking in, stopped showing up where you're not valued. You just do it. Calmly, quietly, firmly. And trust that those who matter, those who are truly aligned with your spirit, will feel the shift. They will either rise to meet your frequency or fall away. Either way, you win. Luxury is rare, luxury is subtle, and mystery is one of its greatest currencies. So, stop oversharing. Let them wonder. Let them imagine. Let them miss your voice, your energy, your presence. Not because you're playing games, but because you're finally treating yourself as someone worthy of being missed. There is divine strength in restraint. Jung would remind us, you don't owe your soul to every room you walk into. You don't owe your essence to people who haven't earned the right to witness it. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's elegance. It's power. It's proof that you don't need noise to feel alive. You don't need to be everywhere to be remembered. You only need to be aligned, intentional, and unapologetically silent when necessary. This is how you elevate. This is how you rise. Not by screaming louder, but by speaking less and meaning more. Because the loudest presence is often the one that speaks through energy, not volume. The pursuit of validation is one of the most common traps we fall into. It's easy to seek approval from others, to look for reassurance, to search for confirmation that we are worthy, talented, beautiful, or deserving. But this desire to be validated by others is a direct reflection of a deeper inner insecurity, the fear that we aren't enough on our own. Carl Jung, the master of the psyche, once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when we constantly seek validation from others, we are denying ourselves this very privilege. We are allowing the world to dictate our worth. But the true luxury comes when we start valuing ourselves, regardless of external opinions. When we become the source of our own validation, we stop seeking it from others. And here's the secret. When you stop seeking validation, you start radiating an energy that others find magnetic. People can sense when someone is at peace with who they are. There is no need to impress anyone because you already know your worth. This is not arrogance. This is self-assurance. The more you embrace your uniqueness, the more others will recognize and appreciate it. You become rare, and rarity is always in demand. You might have noticed how certain people stand out without doing much at all. They walk into a room and all eyes naturally turn to them, not because they are the loudest or the flashiest, but because they carry themselves with a quiet confidence. They've stopped seeking approval, and that alone makes them irresistible. They are the luxury that others crave. So, how can you embrace your uniqueness? It starts with self-acceptance. You need to stop comparing yourself to others. The moment you stop measuring your value against someone else's, you'll begin to recognize just how special and irreplaceable you truly are. Understand that no one in this world can bring what you bring. No one can fill the space you occupy. Your talents, perspectives, and experiences are entirely yours, and they are valuable beyond measure. Jung often spoke about the importance of individuation, the process of becoming your true self. To be truly authentic is to stop hiding parts of yourself that you've been conditioned to suppress. Whether it's your quirky personality, your unconventional interests, or your unique approach to life, these traits make you who you are. And when you own these traits, you stop needing approval because you know deep down that they are an essential part of your value. The process of embracing your uniqueness isn't about rebellion or defiance. It's about liberation. It's about freeing yourself from the need to please others and finally stepping into your own power. When you do this, you will stop watering yourself down for the comfort of others, and you will start to flourish in your full potential. That is luxury, being fully yourself, unapologetically, without needing anyone's permission to exist as you are. Another powerful element of embracing your uniqueness is learning to love the parts of yourself that others might not approve of. We all have our imperfections, our flaws, our quirks. But it is these very things that make us interesting. The things we think make us less than are often the qualities that make us exceptional. Embrace them. See them as your power, not your weakness. The world loves someone who is perfectly imperfect because they remind us that it's okay to be human. This is how you transcend the need for external validation. You stop seeking approval because you no longer need it. And when you no longer need it, others will begin to give it to you freely because people are naturally drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin. Let's look at it from another angle. What happens when you stop seeking validation? Suddenly your confidence begins to soar. You stop hiding behind masks and start showing the world who you really are. The moment you do this, people start paying attention. They are drawn to your authenticity, your confidence, and your self-love. They see the luxury in your uniqueness, and they recognize it as something rare and valuable. Now, the beauty of this is that embracing your uniqueness isn't just about standing out or being different for the sake of being noticed. It's about connecting to your inner essence, the part of you that is aligned with your true purpose. When you embrace your uniqueness, you align with your destiny, and that's when you begin to manifest real abundance. And people will notice. They'll notice your energy, your presence, your sense of self. You become someone who is no longer defined by others' opinions. You become someone who defines themselves. That is the key to turning yourself into a luxury. The moment you decide to stop needing anyone else's approval to know your worth. And this is not a journey of arrogance or narcissism. It's a journey of true self-love. It's the understanding that your worth is not determined by anyone else but you. When you step into your power like this, you attract the right people. You attract those who are aligned with your energy and those who respect and appreciate your true self. Remember, the people who are meant to be in your life will not only accept your uniqueness, they will celebrate it. And that's how you attract high-value individuals who see your worth. They won't just look at you as an option. They will see you for what you truly are, a luxury, irreplaceable and valuable beyond measure. Setting boundaries is one of the most important keys to transforming yourself into a luxury. It may sound simple, but it's a lesson that many people overlook. In fact, most people have trouble setting boundaries because they fear rejection, guilt, or conflict. However, boundaries are a clear and direct expression of self-respect. They are not about pushing others away or being rigid. Rather, they are about creating the space you need to thrive, while ensuring that you are treated with the respect and care you deserve. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming who you truly are requires that you take ownership of your space and your energy. You can't become the person you are meant to be if you are constantly allowing others to walk all over you or drain your energy. Boundaries protect your inner peace and safeguard your self-worth. When you set boundaries, you communicate a message that you are not an option. You are a priority. You are saying that your time, energy, and emotions are valuable, and they must be treated as such. People will respect you when they see that you respect yourself enough to enforce boundaries. Without boundaries, you remain a passive participant in your own life. You allow others to dictate the terms of your existence, and in doing so, you diminish your own sense of self-worth. Think about it. Luxury is never available for those who fail to establish boundaries. Luxury is exclusive, and so are you. People are drawn to exclusivity because it carries value. If you are constantly available to everyone, always giving of yourself without taking time to recharge, then you become like a product that's overexposed. People no longer see the value in you because you've made yourself too accessible. But when you start setting boundaries, you immediately communicate that you are not easily obtainable. This sets you apart from the crowd. It shows that you have a clear sense of self-worth. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries because they understand that you are valuable, and they will do what it takes to be worthy of your time and energy. By setting boundaries, you also protect your peace. Peace is one of the most precious gifts you can give yourself. It is the foundation of mental clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual growth. When you allow others to constantly encroach upon your peace, you create inner chaos. But when you create clear boundaries, you ensure that your peace is protected. And that's when you can begin to manifest the kind of life you desire. Peace allows you to be present in your own life, and that presence is luxurious. Setting boundaries also encourages others to take you seriously. When you allow people to treat you poorly, to overstep, or to take advantage of you, you signal that your time and energy are not important. But when you set boundaries, you make it clear that you will not accept being treated as an afterthought. You show others that you are a person of value, someone who commands respect. This isn't about being harsh or unkind. It's about protecting your own well-being. You are not here to be a doormat for others to walk all over. You are here to experience life at its fullest, and in order to do that, you must surround yourself with people who honor your boundaries, people who value you for who you truly are. When you begin to enforce your boundaries, you may find that some people will try to test you. They will challenge your limits, push your buttons, and try to make you feel guilty for taking care of yourself. But here's the truth. People will only treat you the way you allow them to treat you. When you stand firm in your boundaries, you send a powerful message that you won't tolerate anything less than respect. And when others realize that they cannot manipulate or control you, they will begin to treat you with the dignity you deserve. Setting boundaries also requires that you get comfortable with saying no. Saying no is not easy, especially if you've spent most of your life trying to please everyone around you. But saying no is necessary for maintaining your peace and protecting your energy. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you are constantly giving to others and neglecting your own needs, you will eventually burn out. Learning to say no is a form of self-care. It is an act of self-love, and it is essential for ensuring that you are always operating from a place of abundance, not depletion. By learning to say no, you also create space for the things and people that truly matter. You create the space for the relationships that will elevate you, for the experiences that will bring you joy, and for the growth that will lead you to new heights. People who respect your boundaries will begin to respect you more deeply, and those who don't will naturally fall away, making room for higher quality connections. In the end, setting boundaries is about taking control of your life. It's about stepping into your power and recognizing that your time, your energy, and your peace are precious. Boundaries are a sign of strength, not weakness. They demonstrate that you are clear on your value and that you are committed to protecting it. When you set boundaries, you start to attract the kind of people who will treat you with the respect and admiration you deserve. And that's when you transform into the luxury that others can't help but desire. Remember, luxury is not about being available to everyone. It's about being selective with who gets to experience your energy. Setting boundaries helps you maintain your energy, your peace, and your sense of self-worth. It's one of the most powerful ways to ensure that you are treated as the luxury you truly are.